So it's week 3 of Advanced Server-Side Scripting, COMP2106. So we're going to do some more work with NPM today, and we're going to do a little JavaScript practice, and I'm going to give you a lab, which is due next week. I also want to point out we're going to have a quiz. Not only is there a lab, there's also a take-home quiz, a little bit different style in this class. Rather than a multiple choice quiz, it's short answer. And it's based on weeks 1, 2, and 3. So all 3 lessons are covered, but it's a take-home quiz. So you have until next Wednesday at 5 p.m., February 10th, to complete both your lab and your quiz. So we're not going to take class time. You're just going to do those at home. Okay, so we'll have a quiz every 4th week, just reviewing the lesson content from the previous 3 weeks. So we worked with NPM a bit last week. So in a nutshell, in a really simple way, what is NPM? How would you describe it? This was a job interview, and an employer said, okay, tell me what NPM is. How would you answer them? Okay, it's a package manager. Yes, that's right. True. What else could we say about NPM? Okay, that's right, Maggie. Yep, it's an open source repository. True. Nick says it's an easy way from the terminal to download files from a server. Yep. It makes less work because we can use pre-built code. Justin, absolutely right. So Nick, what you've said is true in a vague way. Yeah, it helps to keep all third-party libraries up to date. That's right. Great answer, Udia. So whenever we're building a site with Node and we're tasked to implement certain functionality, it probably makes sense to go and check, is there an NPM package out there already that already does what we need it to do before we spend the time to code it? So we're going to do a quick exercise, quick little research activity here. So in the lesson 3 folder, we're going to open up this link. I'll put it in the chat as well. Just right click and open up this NPM useful packages spreadsheet. Morning, Janelle. So open it up. Do not edit it in your desktop Excel, please. Please just edit this in the browser. Okay. So here's what I want you to do. And we'll put the link in the chat for you as well. That makes life easier. I want you to go to the NPM website. I'll put the link in the chat. I want you to find one useful NPM package and put in your name, the name of the package, and what it does. So I'm going to put in the one we used last week. Last week, we used the package called accounting for number formatting, so currency, rounding, etc. So I want you to go to npmjs.org. That's the official NPM site. And let's kind of make this collaborative list. So add your name in the first column. Find a package that you think might be something that you might use, and just put in a brief description of why. And this is going to help you later on in the course as you build your assignments, because you're going to have this whole kind of glossary, a dictionary of different useful packages that you might want to use. So I'm going to pause my recording. I'll just give you a few minutes to do this, and then we can kind of look at it together in a few minutes. Okay, so just add one line. Each student can add one line to the file in your browser. I'll pause the recording here for a couple minutes while you do. All right, so let's see what we've got. So there's a Google Map package. Thank you, Justin. That one seemed to be self-explanatory. Barak found a money for doing currency conversion exchange calculations, so that's pretty handy. Rachel found a validator to validate and sanitize our strings, help make sure we're getting proper do input validation. Rudia found moment. This is a common one for parsing and manipulating dates. Rebecca found text table, which gives us borderless text tables that are aligned. Nick found file conversion that will convert PowerPoints to images. That's neat. So we could work with PowerPoint that way. Hung found Babel, which is a really popular package for making JavaScript backwards compatible for older versions. So Young found the random string generator. So this is often good, actually, if we're going to do things like we want to generate a string for salt value when we're hashing something. The random string, it can work well. Or random password generator. That's a great suggestion, So Young. And Maggie found a debug module that helps us debug our code. We can pass one statement at a time and toggle the debug output. Very neat. So if you haven't added anything to the spreadsheet, then I would encourage you to go to NPM, find a package, and add it in here, because as we're working through the course, we may want to come back and add some of these, either for your own assignment or even something that we're doing together for our in-class lessons. Now, there is one kind of gotcha with NPM, and I think we talked a little bit about it last week, but it's worth looking at this story. NPM is great. It's open source. We get all this free code. We can keep track of it and update it. But there's also a bit of vulnerability in NPM. We may have touched on this last week. This story is a few years old now. Has anybody heard this story? Did we talk about it a bit last week? It's in the back of my mind that maybe Nick, you had mentioned it. Oh, Ivan, right. You mentioned it. Ivan, did you want to mention, what happened or what the story was?
I can try and say what I remember.
Sure.
All right, now, I think this guy was developing on NPM. He creating something that he was calling Kik, like the KIK thing, and the internet messaging service, whatever. People were like, "Hey, we're making a Kik program. Can we have the name?" He said no. NPM went, "Well, they're a big company. We'll give them the name." He was upset. Said, "Okay, I'm leaving. Take all my stuff off." They did that, and then the next day, one of his programs was like pretty popular apparently, like as a left pad, and it was like used by like thousands of companies whatever all over the world. And the next day they realized, oh, none of our stuff works anymore because this little tiny, I think you had 17 lines on your thing. I thought it was 12, but on your lesson you think you had 17 lines.
Yeah.
So it just broke like the internet essentially.
Right. You've basically got the story. So the NPM package was called Kik, K-I-K. It was a 17-line package, and it was used. So here's the whole package. It was 17 lines that were used if you wanted to write justify text. The problem was his module was a dependency of another package called leftpad. And leftpad was used by Babel, which hung. So there was like this chain of dependencies. So his package was called Kik. The problem was there was a software company that already had the name called Kik. And they had trademarked the name. Their company was called Kik Interactive. So they told the developer he had to change the name of his NPM package because he was violating their copyright. So they asked him to rename his NPM package, and he said no. So they got into this argument. Eventually he said, you can have the name for $30,000, which they wouldn't pay him. So he took his package off of NPM, which broke leftpad, which broke Babel, which broke every site that used Babel all of a sudden. So this is the one gotcha. When you were relying on these open source packages, it can be an issue because we have these chain of dependencies and we can't guarantee that those packages will stay there forever. So that's a bit of a warning, bit of a gotcha when we're working with NPM to be aware of. So thanks for those of you who contributed. If you haven't yet added something to our useful packages spreadsheet, I'll leave this link up, so feel free. I'd encourage you to go ahead. If you're working with something, you find something useful later on in the course, you can always add it to the spreadsheet. So everybody in the class has it as a reference. Other thing I wanted to look at quickly as we're starting to progress through the course and we're writing more and more node pages is the node style guide. This is unofficial. These are not required documents. And it is a few years old, but still, hasn't been updated for 4 years, but still widely used among node developers. So it's talking about it's describing the common naming conventions. So when we look at others' node code, typically it's going to follow most of these rules. Or most of these, I should say, guidelines, not rules. So things like, for example, enclose, use single quotes instead of doubles. The exception would be when we're writing JSON, where we have double quotes around our JSON values. In terms of our braces, the opening curly braces should be on the same line as our statement rather than on their own line. We want to declare one variable per statement. Typically, we use lower camel case for variables, properties, and functions. So things like admin with a capital U user is convention, not like an admin underscore user. When we create classes, though, and we'll create classes for our models because we're going to use the MVC structure. Classes are singular and upper camel case or Pascal case, the same way they were in ASP.NET in the Microsoft world. Constants are named in all caps whenever we use const. I won't go through all of these, but just I wanted to point out this guide is here. And some of this code is old, like we don't really use the function here. Use slashes for comments. They recommend. Some of the other stuff doesn't really apply. Okay, so that link is here that you can refer to it if you want to use your code and sort of have it follow along with the traditional node standards. That link, that coding style guide is here for you. I think I've put it in tools and resources as well. Okay, so we're going to do a bit of quick review. So I've got an exercise for you to complete. You can work on it with a friend. You can do it on your own. So what I want you to do is open up your code editor. You can open up your project you've been working on. And I've given you a partially completed file here called forloop.js. What I want you to do is take the code in here, copy and paste it into a new file called forloop.js. And then I want you to complete the code. So what should happen when this runs is it should print out a list from 1 to 20 on the screen. And it should load at localhost :3000. Okay, so you can reference some of the code we've already done in this course. I don't know why it's putting in spaces here, sort of annoying. So when you hit localhost 3000, it should print a list from 1 to 20 down your screen. So I'll give you a little bit of time, kind of give me an indication in the chat when you're done, and then we'll go over a solution together in a few minutes. We'll maybe check in about 10 minutes and see how we're doing. If you need help, you are welcome to ask questions. Okay, so create forloop.js and fill in the blanks to complete the code and get your page working. Work on your own, work with a friend, not a test. Okay, we'll start now. Okay, why don't we kind of collaboratively try and put this together and see if we can get it to run. So our first blank is on line 1. What needs to go here? Thank you, Janelle. Yeah, we want to require. Thanks, So Young and Barak. Yep, exactly. We're going to link to the HTTP library. That's good. And then what about our second blank on line 4? Yep, Ravinder, you got it. Thanks, Maggie and Rebecca. We're going to set a 200, so an HTTP OK response. Good. We've got another. What should we use here on line 6? Okay, so we could use let. All right, thanks, Janelle. And our next blank on line 6. Right on. Good, Janelle. So, and Ravinder Beer, Rebecca, excellent. So I is less than or equal to 20. So we're going to start at 1. We're going to go as long as I is less than or equal to 20, and we're going to add 1 each time. And what about on line 7? How do we print out? Yeah, we use our res, our response variable that we've declared here. Right, our HTTP response, we're writing after we write the header. We're going to write out and log. And Barak, yeah, you had it as well. What about on line 12? What do we do here? Again, yep, that's right, Maggie, as you know, we're going to end the response. And then what do we need in listen? Yep, Ravinder Beer, you got it as well. And yeah, let's use 3000 just because that's our standard express port. All right, so here's our file. I'm going to run it. I'll put it, the completed code up on paste bin in a minute, but let's try it out. So I'll go to my terminal. I'm not going to use nodemon for this, because if I use nodemon, you may remember from last week, it's going to run our tax calculator instead. So I specifically want to run the for loop, so I'll just run the command node for loop, which I'll put in the chat as well. Okay. Something doesn't seem quite right because it's not logging out. Oh, I haven't made any requests yet. That's why. So we'll go to HTTP localhost 3000. And it prints out 1 to 20 in our browser. Why does it print it out twice here? Rudia, you asked that question. I'm not sure. I've only made 1 request. So I'm not entirely sure why it printed out twice in the console. Not critical. Our main goal was just to get it working here. I'll have to think about that. I don't have an immediate answer for that. So I'm a bit puzzled actually why it printed everything out here. We won't worry too much about it. for now. Let me just upload this to paste bin. All right, Hung, weird issues are always fun. Weird issues is a chance for us to learn something. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay.
Absolutely.
So on my common node, it prints the 1 to 20 twice, but on my local host, it's print out 2 to 20, and then one line, and then we have one. The same code. Yeah, so I can share the.
Okay, I may get you to share it in a second. So Nick, I'm just reading Nick's comment here. After the body of the for loop, the flow jumps back up to the increment statement.
But it doesn't start from 1. Yeah. Maybe, yeah, let me show
Hung, do you want to share?
Yeah.
Okay, Nick. So thanks for that explanation. I'm not sure I totally follow, but that seems to be what's happening.
So this is. I have the same code, but I use this var here.
Ah.
On my local host, I have this. It didn't start from 1, and then it ends at 1.
Yeah, mine does the same thing, but when you refresh it, it looks like 1 flashes up at the top for a second, and then it puts it at the bottom.
Oh, I just saw it. But then the next thing, it just like, I think it printed twice, and then the second time it just started 1, and then the rest of it disappeared. So I have the same thing on my
Right. Okay.
note.
Okay. Let's experiment a little bit. This is interesting. I wasn't expecting this, but you know what? Okay, it does 1 at the bottom, but Firefox doesn't. Interesting. I didn't try it in Chrome. I'm going to try mine in Chrome as well. I'm just going to enable my share. Re-enable.
Yep.
All right, let's try Chrome here. Okay, so different interpretation in Chrome. All right, Edge, what do you have to say?
No 1 in the bottom.
Okay, so
I'm looking at the console log.
Yep.
It says that the number 1 at the bottom is on a different tag. It's pre-tag, and other is the same BR tag.
Interesting.
I'm not sure if it helps, but yeah, it's different.
Okay, so Rudia, Chrome is fine for you. All right. Well, let's experiment a little bit here. I'm going to try it with var.
Oh, Firefox works.
I'll need to stop my server and run it again. Okay, same result in Chrome. Firefox is fine. Edge, it's fine. Really interesting, though, that we're getting it. Chrome is wrapped in the pre-tag. That's interesting because I don't have that. So 1 should appear. This is really interesting.
Different.
Okay, so it says, yeah,
Only
okay, so
Chrome.
convert to let.
Yeah. That's the problem.
What if we try this? Let I equals 1. Rather than declaring it, I'm thinking this is going to give me the same result. I'll run it again. Nope, Chrome still wants to put it down here. Goes out of that. All right, well, this is interesting. What's going on? I'm going to try one more thing here. I'm curious where the 1 winds up if we do this. So I'll try res.write. And maybe I'll open a UL tag. And after my loop, we'll close the UL. And rather than using line breaks, we'll use li tags here. I'm curious to see in Chrome if this makes any difference. Thanks for that, Maggie. But in this case, we've got text HTML as the content type.
Yep. Oh.
At least that's what it. But I will check in the console. But I think you're onto something with that pre-tag. Now, some of you had that pre-tag in Chrome. I didn't have it in mine. Interesting. So in Chrome, it's now okay with li tags. But it wasn't when I just used br tags. I have no explanation for that. That's going to take some more research. Why did it behave differently in this case? I don't know. It's a mystery. So I'll load up this version on Pastebin if you want to try it. But I'll have to do a little more digging and figure that one out. I agree, Hung. I'd like to know what's going on with Chrome. So here's the new version. So how does it work? If you try the UL and LI, do you get the correct? You get 1 to 20 now? I'd be curious to know from different browsers, from Chrome, from Safari. Interested to know with the UL and LI tags. Now it's printing out the numbers. I am very puzzled by what comes out in the console, I do admit. So try the version with the UL and LI tags. Let me know how it works for you. I think Maggie gave us a clue about the problem. Okay, uniform for you, Ivan, works hung. Okay. All right, I'll have to play around with this a little more and figure out why we got some strange results. Maybe have some time. Maggie, that's a possibility. Yep. It is that there is no like HTML head and body tags, perhaps, so Chrome doesn't really know what to do. Or P, yep, that's a possibility. Maybe had I just enclosed the whole thing in a div or a P, it would have worked. That's not a bad suggestion. We'll try that. Have to play around with it. Okay, it is 12:50. So why don't we take a 10-minute pause here, and we'll come back at 1 o'clock. We'll do a little more JavaScript review. I will give you lab 1, and then we'll start looking at routing using an NPM package called Connect. And that'll kind of lead us into starting with Express next week. Okay, let's take a break here.